So let's see how I do. Share my screen. This one, share the sound. All right. So last time I brought up the cookbook application as another quick way of getting started. So I wanted to start with the cookbook, and we can make an update to it and actually improve the actual cookbook. And it's going to touch on a lot of different things than last time. So I think it's a kind of a nice second office hours, but still very basic. So one of the things that came up in the last office hours that I don't think everyone completely got, I'll do it again now, is when you download it, you download these Swift package dependencies. But if you are developing these packages locally, like if you actually want to make changes to AudioKit, you need to have a local copy of it. So all you do is you drag in your local copy of your AudioKit folder, and you drag it somewhere in your actual application. And when it does that, it should, see, why didn't that work? Okay, so that didn't work because I had AudioKit open in another window. So let me just remove that reference and try that again. So there can only be one AudioKit full folder open in Xcode across all your applications. There can be as many Swift packages as you want, but so this is the only AudioKit I have. I dragged it in here and it disappeared from down here. And if I want to do the same thing for AudioKit UI, I can do that as well. So drag AudioKit UI. And it will change the project to point to the local copy, but you won't check that in. And before you make any like pull requests, you just drag these back out and the Swift packages will come back as references. And I think there might be a few things that I changed in AudioKit, so that's why I'm dragging them in now. Well, you can run this application and it's just a bunch of like little quick examples of things in AudioKit, different sounds it can make. You guys hear that beep, I hope. So in here, the content view that defines the main screen are all these navigation links. And if you look in there, you see that I have put in some to-do items. And today I think we're going to cross off the list, or at least start the metronome. But we're going to actually not only do that, but we're also going to look at this shaker one. Now shaker, it's pretty boring. It has I just added the Matt's FFT view, but before it was just one button and it made some sound. So that's okay. It is a demo of the shaker, but it's pretty boring. And I think a nicer demo of the shaker would be a shaker metronome. It's kind of cool, like when you're developing an audio app, to have, some take on what will make your app different. So our metronome is going to be different in that it's going to be all shakers, and it's all physical models. So instead of being samples, there are these dynamically generated sounds, which could be used. In fact, when we did Hey Metronome, we were going to do this, and we were going to market it as being a metronome that doesn't fatigue the ears as much because the sounds do not repeat. They're actually slightly different every time they're played because they're physical models that have a random factor. So we're going to combine the shaker example with a metronome, and there's something cool about this shaker sound. And it doesn't sound like a metronome. It's very close to being a metronome, but it has a delay line in there that's giving it a bit of groove. And we could actually make that an option in our metronome too, that it's a metronome that has the ability to have a little bit of delay to keep the sound kind of interesting to the ears. So let's take a quick look at what the shaker, we're going to edit this shaker recipe to add metronome features. So we might as well take a look at what it is to start off with. So It just contains an audio engine, a shaker, it's put through some reverb, and then it has a callback loop. Callback loop is a very amateurish solution to doing things over and over again in AudioKit. It is simply a timer that gets played at a frequency. I think internally it is a, what is it inside? It's a dispatch main. There it is. It's just a timer. So the timing of this is not going to be sample accurate. So it's fine for a simple example like this, but it's not something that you'd want like a metronome to be based off of. People have actually released AudioKit apps on the App Store that use this kind of stuff because, well, most people are not going to hear it, so they're not going to compare it to, say, their metronome on Logic or Ableton Live and look at the sample accuracy. But this can be, can drift. It can have a flutter. So you don't want to use this. So that's one thing that's going to change. We're going to remove the callback loop. And we'll probably get rid of the delay for right now and perhaps bring it back towards the end. And we'll make the UI a bit cooler, or it's going to control a metronome. So that's what we're going to try to do. Recipes in the cookbook, the idea here is we're not creating a whole app. We're just in one file, creating one screen for this cookbook application so someone could look at one thing and get everything. So eventually, you could totally split this out into different files and make it a lot more complicated. But I think for this purpose of this demo and for purpose of someone coming to the cookbook and wanting to have a digestible point of entry to a concept, I think this is a pretty good way of doing it. So, so we're going to change this up a little bit. So what is a metronome? What is in a metronome? Like, what is metronome data? So a metronome has, we're going to call this our shaker metronome. And we're going to have certain kinds of data. So obviously a tempo is a good thing to have for a metronome. And by the way, if anyone wants to stop me, I'm asking Marcus to monitor the comments, and he can, actually there's so few people here, you could probably just unmute yourself and stop me if you really feel like I've lost you, or if you think I'm going down a wrong path or anything like that. So just let me know. This is very informal. It was going to be recorded, but it's still, everyone knows I'm pretty much coding this for the first time today. And I went for a big bike ride this afternoon, so I'm not going to be the greatest speaker anyway. Somebody's popping in there? No? Okay. All right. So what else does metronome have? It has a time signature. We're going to right now just worry about the top of the time signature. To time signature 4/4 we'll have, they're all going to be quarter notes in the bottom. So we'll do like 3/4 and 4/4 at the most today. We might just do 4/4 for right now. A basic one that probably should be at the top is this thing on? So it says we'll start with it off. And the other things that are important to a metronome are the sounds. So a metronome traditionally has an on sound, like a downbeat sound, and then the other beats have a different sound, usually less prevalent. So we're going to have a louder downbeat, and this is going to be MIDI based. So I'm going to make a note number, and I don't know what it's going to be, but we're going to start with just 0. And I should say, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but these are note numbers, which might give you a hint that this is MIDI based, and this callback loop was just, it didn't have anything to do with MIDI really. It was just calling a bit of code every certain amount of seconds duration. Now we're actually going to build a sequencer that is the cornerstone of our metronome. So in a way, you could look at this as a groove box. If we had the delay and we have if our sequences can get more and more complicated, you could build upon this because the sequencer is going to be open-ended. So the things that there to be note numbers for the non-downbeats. Another thing I probably could mention is I kind of know what the class names are in AudioKit, but now since there's no AK prefix, you might feel like I don't know what to type here. I don't know if I'm getting AudioKit stuff or what. But if you want to limit yourself to just AudioKit stuff, you can do AudioKit dot, and then it'll just show you the classes that are inside of AudioKit, which can be useful. And the other thing is you don't have to, if you didn't know this, you don't have to, it used to be in Xcode, you had to put things in the correct order. But if you just like mvel, it'll find MIDI velocity. So it's got fuzzy search. So we're going to say the downbeats are always at a full volume. So the MIDI velocity for them will be 127, but we'll allow the beat notes that are not the downbeats to have a volume. Perhaps we could have the downbeats have a volume too, but right now, let's just do it like this. So I'm saying on a MIDI scale, which is from 0 to 127, the beats that are not the primary downbeats are going to have a half velocity. Okay, so that, I think that's a good start for what kind of data will drive our shaker metronome. Okay. So this shaker, we're going to need a few more things defined in here. So we will need a we'll need a sequence basically, or a sequencer. So let's go ahead and just take the callback loop out and put there, and we won't need play rate because that'll be part of the sequencer. So our sequencer is just the AudioKit sequencer. You could make this, there's two sequencers in AudioKit. There's the sequencer and the Apple sequencer. Sequencer was built so that we would have finer grained control over it. And Apple sequencer is great, but occasionally there were problems with it. And since it wasn't open source, we couldn't address those problems. There's a common thing we saw with some clients where the first beat that was played on the Apple sequencer was off, and it wasn't open source, so there was really nothing we could do about it. So that's why what motivated us to write our own sequencer. So we ended up renaming the Apple sequencer and stealing the sequencer name for ourselves, AudioKit. And let's see. So let's make this thing make sound, like respond to a sequence first, and then I'll show you how to make a UI that also responds to the sequencer, which will be nice because the sequencer is a sample accurate thing, and it'll drive not just the sound, but it'll drive the graphics. The Swift UI interface will change appropriately exactly on time. All right, so we have our is playing here, so we don't need this. This is our loop-based way of doing that, but we are going to need the data. So I'm going to publish this data. So it's published var data equals shaker metronome data. And whenever that gets changed, we're also going to make the UI depend on it. So the UI will automatically change, but to make changes within the conductor, we're going to monitor it with the did set. Alternatively, we could observe the metronome data just like Swift UI observes it. But to do that, we would have to write subscription functions, which for recipe, I found them to be a bit too long, a little bit too complicated looking for the average user. So I found this to be simpler. But maybe in a real world app, you would want to have your conductor in another file excuse me, and write subscriptions to the various, you could put publish in front of all these, and you could subscribe to specifically what happens when the tempo is changed and do something here. But here we're just going to in bulk respond to any change in metronome data by syncing up what's happening in the conductor with what the metronome data is. So for instance, we could say right now that if the metronome data is changed, we're going to want our sequencer's tempo to be the tempo that came in. And what else can we say? That's the tempo. We could also respond to this, and we could say if the data is playing, then our sequencer should be started. Otherwise, stop it. I would think play is an option too, so we don't have to play from the start, just in case we would find ourselves constantly going back to the beginning of the sequence at any time, even the tempo was changed. So I think we actually do want play. This won't do anything if it's already playing, I think. So that we'll add more to this. We'll respond to other things, but I think this is good enough for right now. So let's comment this out. Like I said, this sounded kind of good, so I don't want to lose this. But for the purpose of this this little demo, I just want to work with this. Now, in addition to setting up the signal chain, we're going to have to set up the sequencer on initialization. So I don't think it matters if you do it before or after the engine is created, but I tend to do it beforehand. So we want to say like let a track be our sequencer adding a track for this is the destination of the track. So to describe a little bit what a sequencer does, think of it as a DAW. You're saying I'm adding a track and I want this track to control a certain node, and that node is going to be our shaker. So this track I just created is controlling the shaker, and we can make we can now do stuff with that track. So this track has a sequence associated with it, and we could add a note, or we could add a bunch of different kinds of things to it. But for our purposes, we are going to add a note number, data dot downbeat note number. We're going to add that at the first position, and this is a percussive sequence, so we don't really care about the duration too much. I'll just make it small. And then we could add, let's go ahead and do it. We're going to add three more notes. We'll make our downbeats a different sound so we can hear it up here. And we'll put these at 2, 3. So I happen to know that tracks default, or I think I know that tracks default to be 4 in length, but let's make sure that's the case and say track.length equals data.time signature top. That's an integer, so we're going to have to make this a double. So we're just making sure that the length of our sequence is the length of time that our metronome is going to play. So I hope that makes sense. And so the first position is the downbeat, and the other 3 positions are the quieter beats. Now there is a problem here with these ones down here. Is I didn't use the full method signature for adding something with a velocity. So in fact, we want to have the velocity here. So let's add it. Okay, so we have now our sequence set up, and we have our signal chain set up. And in our start function now, we're getting rid of this loop thing. It's garbage. We don't have to do anything else in that start. We don't have to stop the loop. We might want to stop the sequencer when we're leaving. But we won't be starting the sequencer by default because this start for the conductor just is going to start when the view is loaded. So it's just going to start the engine. We're going to make our UI start the make our UI with the button start the sequencer. So our conductor has a data which is published, so it's going to change. And so if it's playing, we're going to want to write stop here. Otherwise, we're going to write start. And then all we want to do is change the toggle. It should start playing. I'm sorry, it's toggle. Yep. And okay, so what's going wrong here? Saying something's not created. And that's because I haven't used that reverb. So let's not do, let's bring the reverb back in. So we'll just have reverb default, but we're gonna make that reverb based off of the fader for now. Let's see if our errors go away. Okay, still doesn't like that so it looks like we are gonna have to bring this line, these lines, lower than like this reverb. So let's do it like this. Let's say we're going to set up our entire signal chain first. Then we're going to set up our sequencer second. And in the very end, we're going to set our output and be ready for playback. Our errors are gone, I think. We should be able to run this and see what happens. Does anybody know if this is going to work just by watching me code? I don't.
I believe in you.
Thank you.
Right, we need to animate that launch screen.
I don't know why these launches are taking longer and longer to start up. I don't know if the AudioKit's fault or something happened in Xcode 12, but it just seemed like it's taking a while. This should be a very fast app to load. It could be having to do with the fact that we're actually loading up all these conductors on load, but we're not starting any of the engines. So I probably could profile this and find out some more information, or some kind soul could do it for me. All right, so it's pretty quiet, but do you guys hear that?
Yeah, it's coming through.
Yeah.
Okay. So that sounds like it could be our correct sounds. We could change these numbers to other numbers and see if they change. Of course, next thing we're going to do is make an interface to change all that stuff. All right. I could move the shaker to the top while we're working on it. All right, so those are definitely different sounds. So now I think it's just a matter of making a UI for it. So the first UI thing I'd like to make is I'd actually like to be able to change the sounds from the interface. So that means changing, actually, I could also make a slider for the BPM. That might be kind of fun as well. Because maybe we should go like from top down. We have a start button that's controlling his playing. We could add a slider that changes the tempo. I think I'll try that. So slider. Maybe this will be good enough. So conductor data tempo, and we're going to go from say 60 to 40, and our label will be text saying tempo. Cannot convert value of type to expected argument type, close range of BPM, because, oh, that's right, don't need these brackets. All right, good work. Let's find out. Okay. I'm convinced it works, but we could probably have, actually, the label didn't show up anywhere, did it? How that works. But we could do that like this instead. Maybe that label is something for accessibility or something like that. Data tempo. And maybe we can make it an integer.
Hey, Ari, could you gain the shaker too a little bit so we can hear it louder?
Yeah, I tried to make it here. I wonder if this gain is limited somehow. Gain range. Oh no, it's not limited, so we could bring it way up. It's really, these shakers are really quiet. I don't want to break anybody's any of these headphones or anything, but I don't think that'll be too loud. And we could also bring up the second ones to be maybe 100 instead of 60. Maybe it gets extra quiet on the non-down beats. And we're about to be able to change the sound too, so we may decide that certain sounds are nicer. The other thing would be to put this through a compressor. I tried to do that right before we started this with Marcus. I couldn't quite get it to do its job. I'm not very good with compressors, but that would be another way to equalize the sound. All right, so we can just check to make sure I didn't introduce any bugs while I could think about the next step. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to look at the sounds. Let's see if we'll check if the sound is any better too.
Yeah, that's an improvement, but yeah, let's maybe when you change your sounds, we can start cranking them up.
Okay, let's go to 20. Okay, all right, so let's make a quick interface for this. We'll make this text be sound 1. I got some cool things to show with this. Conductor.data.downbeat. And then maybe we can put a stepper. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know how to use steppers. Let's use buttons. I guess I could try to figure out steppers live. On increment. On decrement. Give it a shot, I guess. Sound 1. Yeah, that could be interesting. So if it's on increment, we're just going to say conductor data dot note number plus equals 1. And there's going to be a limit to that, but I'm not going to worry about that too much right now. I guess I will worry about it here if I just I don't know how MIDI note number of trouble handles zeros, but I'll say if it's greater than or equal to 1, then we'll subtract it. And likewise, maybe I'll say here, I happen to know that there are only 22 of these, so I'll keep them in order. That's for downbeat. I guess we should try it. Okay, so sound 1 is currently 6. I could probably put that 6 inside here. Let's press play. Okay, so it's not changing anything, and I know why. We have changed it in the data model, but we have not done anything to our sequence once that value is changed. That sequence was just created on init, and we've never done anything with it. So let's bring this sequence creation stuff into a function. And we were going to have more than one, so call update sequences, and we will call it here. Now we're just going to be creating that track now, so we don't actually need to give it a name. So we're going to paste that here, and so we're going to say track. We could also do like for track in sequencer.tracks. Just if we're going to send the same track to everything. It's just one. Kind of silly, I guess, but I kind of know what's coming up next, so I'm going to do it like that. So now every time we get some change, we will also update our sequences. Now, we should do here, this will also, by the way, handle changing the time signature once we get there, but we should probably clear it. And yeah, so we have nothing there, and now we have stuff in there. That should work, I think. Yeah. I could put this in a for loop as well, of course, but for right now, it might be okay. Okay.
Dude, that's awesome. That was awesome.
Okay, so let's make it a little bit better before I copy that for sound 2. So first of all, we don't need 2 texts here. We can just put this here. Something like, oh, actually I already had that. Something like this. And then, so what we actually want is, we actually want to have a a name for this thing. So we can actually do this with shaker type. It's very bad about completing. So I'm going to do this outside. Say var or function name. It takes a note number and returns a string. So we want to do shaker type raw value. Oh, because it's already expecting a MIDI byte, so that's good. So note number dot I know I did this before. Yeah, it should work. Let string equal this. String dot Let's see, why is this not right? I think it's because this is a see if this compiles, see where it has a problem. It has no member title case. Oh, we really want this to be a string. So let's do it like this. Oh, bummer. So this is good. I'm glad I pulled an AudioKit because I just made this commit earlier today. So this title case is inaccessible. So let's fix that in AudioKit right now. So if that were a package, you would not be able to change this. So that's why it's good to pull in AudioKit work on a public thing. So and down here, we're going to say sound one is name for the downbeat note number. Okay, so what's wrong here? Oh, I need conductor.data. I wonder if I
missing a parentheses, I think.
Oh, thank you, sir. That was exactly right. And we need to put in this. All right. So yeah, I just put this in AudioKit today. It's new in Swift is being able to get the names of the enumerations from when you string interpolate them. And so you don't have to have like extra arrays with their names. And now we have sandpaper, soda can, sticks, nickel and mug, quarter mug. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, there's a sandpaper. That's clearly sandpaper. So that's actually looking kind of nice. Let's now copy this for the, I can actually call this downbeat. And then we can call this probably faster ways to do this, but I'm just going to do it manually. Okay, that looks right to me. I think the sound is actually decent volume too. It's too bad. Okay, that gets annoying quick, but I don't know why this is slightly off, but who cares? We can fix that some other time. It's probably this has some space in it or something. Could trim it. Or just say non-dot beat or put something here else. Okay, so we've done beat number. We can put a slider in for the velocity. And now I want to do one other really kind of a really cool thing I think is an important step to see. But let's just finish the thought and change the beat velocity. Now I wonder if this will work because these are not note numbers. I wonder if it'll bind to that. It may actually have problems with it. I haven't tried this yet. Yeah. So what is it complaining about here? Okay. It doesn't give me a very good error at all. Failed to produce diagnostic expression. So something, it's quite possible that this beat velocity is not a type that it's can change like that. I don't know. It's like a slider wants to bind to this thing, but it can't. So a couple ways to solve that would just be to change this to a float. See, or that would at least show us or a double. And then when we make our sequencer, we can say velocity equals MIDI velocity integer data dot beat velocity, and then replace these all with vel. See if that fixes things. Okay. Let's get a sound we can really hear. Okay, so we now have controls for everything that we set out to control, except for time signature. Actually, no, if we don't have a control for it, but this would work if we had a control for it. But maybe I'll, since we're getting close to 8, I want to add in one more pretty cool UI element. So, and in fact, it's related to the time signature. So maybe it'll be something we can actually reappropriate. So what if we had a set of numbers up here under the slider that were like numbered 1 through 4, or maybe 2 through 6. And when you click on them, you would change the time signature, but while it's playing, they would light up appropriately as the sequencer tells them to do so. That would be nice, right? So how would you do that? Anybody want to throw in a guess how we're going to make a Swift UI react to those changes?
Maybe like an H stack with some rectangles.
That's how we're going to draw them, but how are we going to connect it to the sequencer?
Is there like a callback type thing?
Yes, that's right. We're going to make a new type of instrument. Callback instrument. Callback instruments. Okay, so it's going to give us back 3 things. Just call them this for now. We'll get a sense. I got to call them different things. We'll get a sense for what they are in a second, And for right now, let's just print those things. So this is an instrument. It doesn't make sound, but it is an instrument. So it needs to be connected to this signal chain. So we're going to make a mixer. And that mixer is going to have to be set up as the endpoint. It doesn't have to be the endpoint, but it has to be in the system. And we're going to say in that mixer, we're going to add input for the reverb so we hear it still. And we're going to add input for our callback instrument so the data is pulled through it. And so that's not enough. It's just now existing, but we now need to make a track or sequence sent to it. This track, the first one we created here, was just a track for the shaker. So we could make a second one here. Add track for a callback instrument. Now, our update sequences, I made it so all of our sequences were looped through. That's why I put that in here. So instead of just doing it on the first one, say I knew we're going to do this, let's start off at least by doing the same thing across all these sequencers, all these tracks of the sequencer. So I think we have now the items hooked up appropriately. I know that went a little bit quick, but okay, so you see down here in the console log, we are printing 3 numbers. And what we're printing is 144 is the code for MIDI note on, and 6 is our downbeat, and 10 is our regular beat. And then our velocity on the downbeat is 127, and our velocity on the regular beats is 100. If I change these values, see these velocities are going down for the downbeats, and if I change these, the numbers now change as well. So we're now getting information sent to the shaker for playing sounds, and the same information is being sent to the callback instrument for printing this data. So instead of printing this data, let's do something with it. As Matt suggested, let's do 2 things. We need to make a UI place for this stuff to happen, and then we also need to have, we don't need it right now, but I think we'll want to have things about our data model that describe, what should be highlighted at this moment, what colors should they be, or like we can start off with a simple one like current beat. And that's an integer, and we'll just keep it as the current beat. So let's go to our UI. I'm kind of jumping around. Sorry about that. So we really need this padding. I don't know where I think we kind of lost where it was attached to. So let's do a H stack of texts. We could do a list, or we could, since it's just 6, we could just do copy and paste. Might be my preference right now. Spacing at 20, maybe 10, and we'll just do a text of 1 and foreground color. Actually, maybe we can make circles or something nice as the thing goes by. It might be nice to have a circle. So the background is going to be a circle with a foreground color of, say, white. I think we kind of do dot white here. And then text of 1 foreground color of dot black. guess we could do this in a for each, right? So this is what we'll do. One. Actually, I'm trying to think if we should do 0, or one can do 0 up to data dot. Let's do data dot time signature top conductor dot data time signature top. But then let's also go one more so that we could actually change our time signature by clicking on the one that's not working. So actually we don't have to add the one because that's there. And we'll just call this index. I hope this will work. And we'll just put in index +1 for the name. And all right, so what did I do wrong here?
Instead of ... I think you have to do like ... less than. It's weird, but it, yeah.
Well,
Add one.
really?
Yeah, because it's a closed loop versus.
All right. Well, then I do have to add the one because I want to actually go up to one above the thing. So, okay, that's cool. I totally don't get that. You were about to explain it to me, I guess.
It's a weird thing about Swift where Swift UI, like Paul Hudson talks about how it's weird. You see the closed range.
Yeah.
That it's mad about. It wants just, yeah, like literally that change should make it work.
Thank you. That would probably trip me up for a while. So oh, it's
It
awesome. This is Zoom.
It drove me nuts, man. Until I learned that. So
let's see if this produces a H stacks anywhere representing like what we want here. You know, maybe the nicer thing will be to add one more circle that's a plus instead of a number that doesn't make any sense. So nice thing is, you know, you can always make these UI decisions afterwards. But that looks okay to start off with. So yeah, I guess what I would suggest doing then is just and changing this to a plus sign. And then you can go back to looking nice and all Paul Hudson-y. And then if we could start off with a minus. No, a minus is going to be done by clicking on these. So if you tap on this Z stack, we want to set the conductor time signature top to be the index +1, I think. Because if you hit 0 with 1, you still want to have 1 beat. I think that's right. So that's how for all the ones that are lower than the full count, tapping on it will just change the time. But if you click on the plus, you're going to actually increment that time signature top. Okay. And let's make this circle be not just white, but let's make it be conductor.data dot current beat equal to index. It'll be red or it's going to be white. So as the current beat changes, we should see this changing, but have we changed what the current beat is yet? We have not, because we will do that in our callback instrument, which I've set up somewhere. Oh, here it is. So if byte 1. So how's this going to work? All we know is the note number, the velocity, and we don't actually have time data at this point. So how are we going to fix this? Yeah, so just to remind you guys, if I hit run again, we can test out this thing and I'll show you what I mean. I already have an idea how to solve it, but I figured it might be a nice question for you guys. So, shaker. Okay, so the current beat number is 0, so that's the first beat. That's actually kind of right. Maybe we'll start off as like -1 in the future or something, or so we don't see that when it's not playing. We will also check, is it playing, and it'll only make it red if it is playing. But if I start this 1, 2, 3, 4, and I make this, should go to 3, 4. Oh, we're getting some note here. Let's find out what happened here. It didn't seem like it changed it for us. Interesting. Instead, conform to identifiable for each ID, provide explicit ID. It doesn't like that I put an on tap on something. Did I put it in the wrong place?
I think it has to do with the way the for each loop doesn't like identify. You see how it's calling out an explicit ID? I think this is where you have to do that like ID colon / self or whatever. I think that's correct.
Okay. I remember that. I didn't. This is a good example of like when you see something and you like just memorize it and don't know why it works, and then it leads your mind because you don't truly understand it. I still don't quite get that. It sounds like you have a better idea than I do.
Yep, Paul Hudson's got some great examples on some of this stuff with his 100 Days of Swift UI. Just to shout him out. That's how I learned it.
He's actually a fan of AudioKit too, so I like him. I only like people fans of AudioKit. Let's see if this works now. Weird that it seems like something went wrong. I know what went wrong, I think. So if I go down here, I'm going to bring this down so we can kind of get a sense for what went wrong. It does seem like this was working from a perspective of this. So this should be giving, but something's going very wrong here with the, it's almost like we forgot to clear the tracks appropriately. So the time signature top should have changed, and it actually did change. We see it appropriately on the UI, but we're still getting a lot of printouts here. So wait, if I go down to 2/4 time, actually, it looks like 2/4 is, you know, there are fewer ones in between. There's a start, and then, but the thing is, we really should see these things pairing up. And so one thing that we're doing wrong is that we're throwing in these positions even when the beat number is wrong. So ideally, actually, we should be going here and doing 4 beat in, starting with the first beat. Data time signature top. So if the time signature top is 4, we only want to get 3 of these guys. So the position here is going to be double of beat. Now that should only give us, and maybe we should make these durations even smaller to make sure they're not overlapping and we always see these pairs going together. So now we're only creating enough offbeats for how many the time signature has set. Let's see where we're at. That's right. 2, 3, 2. Yeah, that's right. So now we're on a waltz beat. And this should be on off. And I guess the sandpaper is, I really want to have sounds that we can tell the difference here. That's pretty weird. Like I remember the sandpaper sounding quite a bit more sandpapery. Like, it could be the duration got too short for the whole sandpaper to be heard. And so having this be really short could be actually hurting us. I wonder if I can just change this to half a second for the downbeats. Maybe. Now that we know it's working, we don't have to worry that we're not debugging as much. And so the last thing I want to do is make this so that the thing actually animates appropriately. So we have it fully controlling everything, and it's kind of a nice interface. But there's this problem that we're not actually animating yet. That's much better. And this should be just sandpaper. So that's cool. That's already better than most of the other recipes. So I'm pretty happy with we got here about an hour. But let's just make it so this red circle moves along. Now the problem is this data here is showing us note-ons, and it's showing us velocities and what sounds we're playing, but we're not actually getting like what the current beat is, unless we were like to make every single beat a different note number. So one solution. But anybody have a clever idea of how they think we could make this follow the current beat number? I should really have like little prizes or something. No brave souls. Nobody's here.
No, I don't know.
Okay. All right. So the deal is this: like we made these sequences, and I just happened to make them. Where did I make them? Yeah, in update sequences for all the tracks, I'm doing the exact same thing. But there's no reason you have to do that. You do want to make sure that these tracks are in sync. But as far as what you send, the different tracks, you can do what you want. So we can say where track equals sequencer.tracks.first. I don't know how brittle that'll be. We could probably do that a little bit better way. So for the first track, the one that's playing the sound, we know this one does a good job. Of course, I don't recommend using bangs, but for demo purposes, it's fine. And then we can say track equals sequencer.tracks1. So now we're going to work on the data that we're sending to our callback instrument. So instead of sending it all this kind of stuff, we're just going to track.sequence, add a note number for the current beat. So how are we going to get this? Oh, let's see how this is going to work. I've done this before and now I'm losing my track of how I'm going to. Basically, my idea here is I'm going to be sending, instead of sending the MIDI note number, I'm going to send the current beat position. So, oh yeah, I know. So we're going to say for beat in 0 to data.time signature top, we're just going to send that. Why is this thing not indenting for me? We're actually going to send it the MIDI note number. We're going to send it the beat disguised as a MIDI note number in byte 1. Position is going to be to double the beat still. And duration, doesn't matter. So all I'm doing is, instead of sending the information about what to play, I'm just telling this track that the beat is now this one. So this track now, this callback instrument, instead of just printing, could still keep it printing, but we're also going to make the data.current beat equal to byte 1, integer version of it, I guess. Okay, what's wrong here? Data cannot be used. That's interesting. Why can't I access the current beat from here? Oh, okay, well, that's curious. I wonder if I can only do it after I initialize callback instrument dot. Can I reset its callback instrument? We can always remake a new one. Right. Beat nothing. Actually, underscore, right? Underscore. And then we just say data.current beat is equal to beat. Now, is that going to have problems? Going to need what, self on that? Maybe only initialized once. All right, well, that's fine. Oh, because it's a let. If I did variable, let's just make this a declaration, since we won't really need, if we have to debug it, we can debug it down there. And I probably have to move this. We might have issues now with when I'm allowed to do this. Let's see if I can do it right here. Self-captured before all mutable members were initialized. Is this a weak self thing? Oh, the other thing I can do is put it back down there and just let this be a var. I'll have to think about how to do this a smarter way. Let's see if that one works. If it works, we'll think about how to make it cleaner in the future. All right, so it didn't actually work. So let's see what went wrong. Check now to see if it's not actually getting inside this callback instrument. Will it work if I change this once? No. All right.
Is it because you do the update before you add the callback, so it's associated to that like first callback you made?
Yeah, it could be, except that I did update sequences when I changed the data. Like it's going to rerun update sequences when I change the length. So it should then come here. If I go here and I do that, it gets here and it adds a sequencer to, but I see what you're saying. Maybe right here is the issue. Aha, that could be it. So let's take that away. Let's take both of these and do it after that. Good eye. If that's right, that would be fantastic. I hope it is right. No. Okay, so let's now see if we're getting into here. So we're still not getting into this callback, even though I've added it only for the newly created callback instruments. Very interesting.
You added a different callback to the input to the mixer.
Yes, that is true. But am I pushing everything back over? Let's try that. This is programming by shuffling cards now, because things are going in different orders. Okay, well, it took the red away. That's a good first step. And we're getting in there. So it's an ugly sound to stop on. So let's, whoa, okay. Let's print out what we got, because maybe we're just getting bad data here. This is definitely progress. We got the thing set up in the right order. Thanks, Matt. I appreciate your eye.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so what are we actually getting in there? Oh. Okay, we're getting a ton of information that we don't want. Why are we getting all those type things? Oh, yes, of course. Okay. I think what went wrong. So we're still using the add note number. I thought I kind of thought we were using something else, but we are actually still using the note number position. So what I need to change this to is this thing is going to be 144 and 128. The second number is going to be the beat. And the third one's going to be probably just 127 or something, but it's unused. Yeah. All right. Okay, but it's still not quite working good. Look at how slow it is. And it's kind of random. Let's see what's going on here. First of all, it's printing out a lot of stuff. So that's one problem. Secondly is we didn't clear this track before we started adding stuff to it again. We only cleared the first one. So I think we ended up adding a ton of data onto that track and it was just getting overloaded. Let's find out if that's true. Because it's kind of looked like it was working at first and then it kind of went worse and worse. Ah, interesting. Looks like there's something wrong with the logic for larger numbers here. Let's see where's the. Okay, there's definitely some logic still wrong inside here, but the basic concept that the beat is getting changed is working. So I might call that enough of a win for right now, because I think this may take a second to fix, because I think we're just getting some bad data. It's getting slower and slower. Maybe I'll see, now that we know we're not going to be putting too much data in, maybe I will do one quick debug session to print out what we're actually trying to do. It does seem like it works until I start messing with the plus and like changing the time signature top. Like we can just prove that out by first like messing with other things and seeing where we should see 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3 down here. Okay, well, there's one thing. We're getting a data change on the note offs as well. So we should probably also be checking to make sure we're on a note on. So we actually don't have doubles. But that's not too big of a deal. So the tempo changes work fine. We're still in sync. We can change these things, no problem. We can change volumes, no problem. If I go to 3/4, we're off. So some logic about this is not really changing our time signature properly. Is still an issue, but I think I'll either leave that as an exercise or leave it till next time. So we're really close. Basically, just when we're changing this time signature, the value changes to the new value. We know that it's changing correctly by here, but I think something about the logic around updating the sequences. Oh, actually, I think I might see it. We just like we didn't do the clear, we actually didn't change the length of the track, this new track. I probably could do this a little bit cleaner, instead of just using the variable name again, we could give it a different name and such. But I think, let's just try one more time. This might be all it needs. And then we can say, great, and I'll push it up to the repo and call it a night. I know Marcus needs to get back to work. All right, so go to 3/4. Perfect, that works. Go to 5/4. Okay, So it was a matter of keeping these two sequences in sync. So maybe the smart thing to do would have been to loop over all the sequences and clear them and set their length in a loop, and then go track 1 and do the stuff for track 1, do track 2 and do stuff for track 2. So a little bit of my laziness made it a little bit confusing here, but functionally it works now. And I hope people learn something about the sequencer and how to tie it to UI, and how things never work the first time for anybody, not just you. So I can also answer questions if anybody has any, or if they wanted something cleared up for a couple more minutes.
Hey, my name's Ed. Nice to meet everybody. This isn't a question about specifically the sequencer. I am trying to work with the sequencer, but long story short, I'm trying to work on an app that schedules audio recording and plays back multiple files at once. I've been using AudioKit 4 for like a long time, and I tried to migrate to AK5, but I put in the Slack chat, just asking if there was a clip recorder, which I saw there wasn't. My real question is, what would anybody, I guess, suggest a workaround be? Because I'm having trouble dynamically adding an input in AudioKit 4, but I also know that there's no recording like scheduler in AudioKit 5 as of right now.
Yeah, you're kind of stuck between two changes, right? It's because the AudioKit 5 allows you to have dynamic connections to mixers,
Right.
and is more stable in other ways. But then we didn't bring the clip recorder over because the guy who wrote it now works for Apple and can't maintain it, and it's in Objective-C, I think, and I just don't want to deal with it. You can take stuff from AudioKit 4 and port it over to AudioKit 5. It's not impossible, but I know it was not going to be trivial with the stuff that Dave O'Neill made. So yeah, I don't know what to do about that.
Okay.
You can use the recorder. There's still a recorder. It's not that sort of clip recorder scheduled playback thing. I gotta have to take a look at your app a little bit more. There might be other tools to use, like combining the player with the sequencer to schedule your playback instead of using the clip recorder. That could be something that might work. Yeah, I feel your pain. I mean, a lot of people have their issues with AudioKit 5, and we made a lot of choices to make things better, but we also made some choices that kept ourselves sane by not maintaining old software. We ripped out AK audio file because the guy who built it 4 years ago was completely disappeared, and his choices were not the same choices I would make today. So we're like, we're just going to rely on AV audio file, Apple's thing, and change our code to just use that. So some of those features got changed to be converters. So some people use AK audio file all over the place, are unhappy with me. Wavetable's not there. There's like in the migration guide, there's a bunch of notes about what's been brought over and stuff.
Okay. Do you know if I did see on Apple's like a developer documentation that there is an AV audio recorder that does like schedule recording? My only question would be would I be able to add that to the mixer in AudioKit? Or I'm relatively new to using AudioKit and Swift in general, so excuse me, I'm a little ignorant.
No problem. I don't know the answer either. I'd have to take a look at what the protocols and class inheritance of the recorder is. We do have a recorder example. I think it's in the cookbook. Yeah, very, very simple. Testing. Testing. So, I mean, there are recording utilities in AudioKit that do conform to AudioKit nodes and stuff. So you might look at those to see if you can extend them to be what you need, or maybe they do already have the stuff in there. So it's at least one example to turn to.
Got you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for the question. All right. Well, I guess we'll be pushing this up, or I should make a pull request. I should show you guys how to make a pull request, but it's run a bit late, so I think I'm gonna call it a day. And I'm doing this every week, so come back again. I'll do a lot of the same things again, but just watching other people code is for a little bit is kind of fun, and you might see some things you didn't know about. And I will learn some stuff from Matt as long as he keeps coming in here and helping me through my issues.
Yeah, thanks for everything,
Yeah.
Ari. This was really helpful.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Ari. I think programming is something takes a lot of repetition, a lot of banging your head over and over, and I think that is equally valuable in addition to just the AudioKit, Apple, material. Just watching your process and watching you iterate and figure stuff out, I think is also very valuable. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad both times we've done this, nothing has gotten too stuck. I won't guarantee that happens every time, but at least this time and last time we had a few problems, but they were surmountable. So that was cool. Thanks for everybody's help. And now it's on Zoom. If anybody would want to just, perhaps show off their plots one of these times, I would be certainly happy to have guest speakers. Hint, hint.
Yeah, I was gonna say that feels targeted.
A little bit.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe with the spectrogram or something, or when the visualizers kind of at its completion.
It can be a joint thing. You don't have to be all on your own. I'm happy to still be here and stuff. I'll be like, now somebody else gets tortured.
Yeah, make me write the for loop.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right, thanks, guys. I want to sign off.
All right, have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.